but what was there were these people sitting in like a circle just spitting poems. No music, no nothing, just people saying words and snaps. And I thought it was like the coolest shit ever, dude.
Mm.
And like what made it so cool was like the power of words without music attached to it, right? Like I love song and I love like how rhythmic and hypnotizing they can be, but to pull those elements away and now you have to sit with the weight of the words by
Mm.
themselves, it hits different. It really
Mm.
does hit different. And I really appreciated that. What is
Hey,
up, dude?
what's up?
Just hanging out, man.
Hey man, it's so good to see you. I know it's not
You too.
IRL, but it's been a while still.
It's been a minute, man. It's so good to see you and hear your voice too, man.
What you been up to, dude?
Been doing a lot of working, man. A lot of working, a lot of reflecting. Not much, not much writing though. I haven't been doing that much
Mm.
writing. I've been writing, but like for like paid stuff. But like that's good, you know, because when it forces me to do something that I wouldn't have like ordinarily have written. So it's like challenging, you know. But like I haven't been really writing for Zach, which is
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, sometimes that is necessary though, right? I mean, it might not be your choice this time, but I notice whenever I like step away from the guitar or whatever, you it gives you like some real life experience to work with. You know, you're just
Yeah,
doing the live in your life part, and then
yeah,
eventually that'll lead to some writing
yeah,
or whatever it is.
totally. I completely agree. Like, yeah, like if all you do is play the piano and you just like end up writing songs about playing the piano, like what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. No, that's a good way to put it. So, yeah, that's the
yeah,
kind of thing. I mean, even if it's not your choice like this time, it can still, kind of help.
yeah. And like, I mean, I think what's good is like I haven't been like completely creatively deprived. I don't think I live that, you know. But I've been doing a lot of video editing and video like stuff,
Oh,
which is a lot of
really?
yeah, man, yeah.
Is that for Zach or what?
Um, no, it's not for that. Like, so I work for this church,
Mm,
doing video stuff, which is like really cool because like I don't know, like it's fun, for me, and I'm learning a lot within it. I think ultimately that skill is meant to be built up for Zach, but
mm,
I haven't really done a lot of creative projects of late with
yeah,
video, so
that's awesome.
for me at least, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I meant to ask you a second ago, like the stuff that you're writing for not for Zach. What are you writing?
Yeah, so it's still creative, right? Which is cool. It's still poems and stuff. I'll tell you the most recent thing that I've written. There's this person I know who goes to church. His name's Matt Russell. He's a pastor at this church that I work at, and he's a great person to work with and to work for in a lot of ways. And he is being honored at this thing that he's going to be a part of, and it's like the honor, like this is the first award that they're giving out in this capacity. It's called the Tomahawk Award, and like I think five people. He's one of five people being honored with this award, and it's for people who you know have big visions, are bold enough to attempt to accomplish these types of things, and that's very much the spirit of who this person Tom Locke is. And so it was like a poem embodying that, and it's kind of this reference or metaphor in some ways to like solar systems, right? And like how like we're like I feel like someone like Matt, this person I'm talking about, who this poem was supposed to honor, who's receiving this award, is like a sun, right? He has a gravitational pull. There's like these different planets that exist around him that he nurtures and give life to, right? So he's the sun. He has a solar system around him, but like throughout a world with all of these different suns, like the bigger thing is like a galaxy, right? Like we want to create these galaxies of just people who can work together, who can breathe life into other people, and eventually they can become their own sons too, you know.
Nice. I
Yeah,
really dig that, man.
yeah, man. That's kind of what that poem's about.
Cool. Yeah, I
Uh,
like the idea of well, first of all, like yeah, the sun and like planet thing, that's always a great like metaphor. And then the thing about using space as a metaphor is that there's so many like nests inside like a level inside a bigger level inside a bigger level. And you could totally make that like translate too. So that's awesome. Is that like a thing that's posted already, or are you
it's
still
not, man. We just finished editing the video for it yesterday, I think, and yeah, it's not posted yet, but it will be. I'll shoot it to you. I'll shoot it to you so you can check it out and see how that comes out. Maybe you can clip it in here in some type of way.
cool? Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll figure that out, and maybe we could talk about video stuff sometime, man.
Totally, dude.
Because
Absolutely.
I'm a noob getting into that as well right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So have y'all shot any music videos before?
No, we actually haven't. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, let's link up on that, dude.
All right.
Let's link up on that.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
What are the like ideas around like a music video? What would that look like for you? Do you have you been rolling that
For
around in your head?
sunrise.
Yeah.
We do have one idea right now where we're trying to go out somewhere really epic in nature, like some kind of canyon or something like that. And the idea is that we're gonna like start off the song like we're like caveman style, like where we're
Huh.
playing our instruments are like rocks and like shells and like bones and stuff,
Whoa.
but then it's gonna like be flashing towards like hyper futuristic. So like it'll
Ah,
be like kind of that progression, but like all within the video. That's a super short gist of it.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
that. I do wonder what does a futurist guitar look like?
Um. Cool. Well, I have this one. The closest thing I have is this guitar. It's
That's
kind of
gnarly, dude.
it's kind
That's
of got like a
gnarly.
Jetsons.
I like the geometric
Mm-hmm.
shapes on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. So this is the Saint Vincent guitar. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
What the fuck, dude? That's so dope.
So,
That's sick, man.
but yeah, me and my a couple of my friends, we're trying to make like at least some kind of low budget or like DIY music video for like whatever song we can. So I'm already
Mhm.
hitting up some of my friends that are like doing, their own thing, making videos and stuff, and we can collab and like bounce ideas off each other. So we should do that
Yeah,
too, man.
totally, dude. Totally. I know, like, have you ever been out to the White Sands in New
No, but
Mexico?
that's one of the spots that I've like had in mind for sure.
Dude, we've been thinking about it as well. So I think like it's all coming together.
Nice.
Yeah, we gotta make that trip. I'll make sure you're looped into that.
Okay, yeah.
We're gonna go over the Christmas break, but that ended up not happening.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I think it's a good thing because like the time wasn't right because y'all weren't a part of it, you know.
Yeah.
So I
So
think it'll
who's
be dope.
that? Is that with some of your friends or
Yeah, man, that's what Jeff, who is my supervisor at this church, but also
mm,
an incredibly dope, creative, super young person.
mm,
Um, and like it's just dope to work with that guy, man.
mm,
The energy's always right, you know, and he
mm.
just likes to work with like cool people and who are just like thinking about like art and thinking about like other cool shit. So yeah.
Yeah. Dude, we need more of that, honestly.
Mhm.
We need
And I think it's crazy that like this guy works at this church, you know, like
mm.
that. I think it's crazy that I work at this church too. You know, I think we don't even think about like what the capacity of creativity can be at churches because they're pretty
Mm,
boring for the
mm,
most part, you
mm,
know, and like to have two creatives like ourselves who could probably do a lot more cool creative stuff outside of our work setting, you know.
mm,
But like to be like a need in a church like that, you know, like yo, if there isn't life being pumped in this creatively, then this is gonna die, you know.
yeah.
And so like I feel like it's definitely like a sense of urgency around like the video department, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to like boost interest and like keep it alive, like you're saying.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's awesome, man. But yeah, we need all the creativity and ideas that we can get because you know what it's like. We're out here in Friendswood, Texas.
Dude, dude. Yeah. So like I know you're doing stuff. I know your brother is killing it. I know you got people like Imhotep
Mm,
who's killing it.
mm.
But who around here is doing creative stuff? Do you know anyone? Like who am I missing?
You mean specifically like here, not like Houston?
Yeah, I mean like here in Friend.
Um, there's a few bands. There's a few
Okay.
bands, but I don't know how active. I mean, no bands are really active right now. Um, yeah, I'm horrible at thinking of stuff like that off the top of my head, but I gotta say the list is probably pretty small. So
Pretty small. Here's a better
yeah,
question, right? Like, because I think about like even if they are there, I don't know about them. And I'm
right,
someone who feels like I seek out creative shit. And
right.
like I like local shit too. So like if it's good and I'm not put onto it, I'm like, how did this
Mm,
not come by me yet? So like how do you think like are there avenues for like creatives to just come up and do stuff in ways that reach the local vicinity? Right? Because
mm,
like I feel like the system has shifted to like you have people who are going online and reaching massives and reaching like their niches, right? But it's totally skipping this local component to where like this person with this big following lives like in the neighborhood across the street, right?
mm,
But we don't even know that person exists, right?
mm,
So is that good or is that like just a byproduct of like the internet and something that we have to deal with? You know what I
mm.
mean? Like, should
Yeah,
that be a thing?
I think it should be both, like local and internet, because that's the future. It's going to be like that in the future anyway. But something that like comes to mind when you say that is like thinking about how do you discover like musicians or something that live around here. And to me, it's like just random open mics where you just like hear someone that blows your mind, like whether that's a local like folk duo or like someone who's like an underground rapper. And then the same thing kind of goes for like art, like how they used to sell art pieces in Nocturne and like put it up there. So there's like these little local spots where stuff like that can kind of go out, but it might be just causing little like drips instead of like really pushing waves.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe we need something that's like kind of like that, but take it up a notch.
Times 100, right? Yeah,
Mm,
that makes complete sense. I just wonder like about like why would anyone do that now? You know?
mm,
Like there's not even like small businesses have been closing down in the past year, right? Like
mm-hmm,
like I don't think it's smart to create a restaurant or a hangout like lounge bar type thing with the
mm,
intention of centered around artists just
mm.
because like or at least not in Friendswood, right? and so like that's the worst part about it because I feel like people out here don't even have like a space to go to cultivate that unless it's
Mhm.
like up in Houston.
Yeah, and if it is, not everybody's willing to do a 1 hour round trip just to like go there and back,
Yeah.
just to pay money and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, maybe there could be, yeah, the fact that you mentioned all that stuff makes me sad. I like forget that we live in a COVID world still. Maybe there's like some kind of like I go to this meditation group, which was originally based in San Francisco, but now that it's semi lockdown, they just turned it into a Zoom meet. So anyone can go and anyone can kind of
Yeah.
talk. And so maybe there'd be a cool way to do like little Zoom meetups where it's just like a community of creative people and they're just like talking to each other, showing each other, like go down the line and like this person shows their stuff and then they talk about it. I don't know, like an art class, but on Zoom or something. I don't know.
No, I like that. I like these ideas a lot, like it's dope. You gotta just try out stuff and see what
Yeah.
sticks, right?
No, I agree. I agree. So let's think about that some more sometime. So yeah, dude, I really wanted to ask you because I actually never talked to you about this. Like, this is like a typical interview type of thing, but like your whole origin story. Like I know you've talked about New Orleans, and I just never knew about how all of that went down,
Yeah.
and how you got into poetry.
Yeah, man. Ah, dude, I love telling the story. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Um, but so basically, like my whole thing with art and like I have to start with art, right? Because that's where my everything starts, right? And it starts with my mom. She would like always have us. I'm one of five kids, and she would always have us like doing arts and crafts, right? Just at the house when I was young,
Mm,
and we'd always draw stuff and show her. And whenever we show her our art, she'd always like praise my siblings. And then when it got to me, she would always give me this really hard feedback. And that doesn't make a freaking 7-year-old feel good, you know?
mm,
And so like I just remember this one day, like I worked really hard on drawing this thing. And she showed or we all went and showed my mom the stuff we made. And I'm like, of course she's gonna love this. This is so good. And it's the same thing, right? She praises my brother and sisters, and it gets to me, and she's like, oh, you gotta fix this. This part's wrong. And she just goes in on my work, and I just like break down crying in the kitchen. I just remember it so vividly. And I'm like, you give everybody else praise, but you just I don't say these words, but like you just shit all over mine, you know. And she explained to me, it's not because I don't think you're good. It's actually the opposite. I think you like have the most promise in this gift. So like I want you to cultivate it. And it was only then that I like saw myself as an artist, right?
mm.
And so I was like drawing and stuff like that. I was doing that, and then I think probably around like 8 or 9 or yeah around that time like I started to really like cultivate my own musical taste, right? And a huge part of that was Nas. Huge part of was that
Mm.
was Nas and DMX, uh which is unfortunate that he passed away
Yeah,
recently.
rest
So
in peace.
rest in peace, DMX. But so like those two were huge for me. And DMX obviously does not have a single song you could probably actually he does have some songs you can play in the church, but
Mm,
most of the bangers you can't play in the church, right? So I had to go to Nas and I would like do covers of Nas songs in the church, right? Like I know I can and like the positive shit. And
mm,
it was so cool. Like they loved it. They always loved it. They always clapped and stuff. And so I was like, yo, what if I like wrote my own lyrics, yo?
mm,
Like they'd go crazy. And they did, yo. Like I started writing rhymes and it was great. It was cool. And like I was in this whole like gospel rap group, and it was like so cool. We were just doing thing, a bunch of young people just doing the most. And that was fun. And then Katrina hit, right? So Katrina hit and that like stopped everything, right? So you had some of us go to Atlanta, some people stay in Louisiana, some of us came into Houston. But like our little group got disbanded from that. I was still rapping, but I wasn't necessarily making like gospel raps, right? Like I think I got more secular in my music, but also I've always been very reserved about my art and like who I let listen to it. And so I've never been, even throughout high school, I've never been the most, hey, look at my stuff, especially if I didn't trust you, right? Going into high school, I was still painting, right? I was still drawing and painting. I played football, but also rap, and like I think like splitting myself in all those different directions like wasn't conducive to like fostering one thing wholeheartedly. But like
mm,
I don't think I would change much about that. But like I mean that leads me into like high school whenever we collaborated with you guys, me and Terrence, and then you and Chris, and we played that talent show, and that was crazy, dude. I still think about
mm.
that sometimes, man. I still think
Yeah,
about that show. That collab was
yeah,
fire.
yeah, yeah. That was awesome, man. That was so much fun. I remember it very vividly too, man. I remember practicing with y'all and then having those drums on the side that you were playing.
Yeah, man. So much fun. So much fun. I forgot about the drum part. Yes. Yo, that like, ah man, I now I really am hyped to like collab and like do some creative stuff
Uh,
with you again. That's
Yeah,
gonna be
man, we
so
got a
fun.
legacy already.
Yeah, dude, for sure. But yeah, so like from there, I was like rapping, but I stopped whenever we graduated for a little bit,
Mm,
trying to just work and whatever. Um, and when I got back in it, like it was like really intentional and really hard. But then like basically a friend of mine's birthday happened. They wanted to go to Avant Garden and it's placed in Houston, right? And so we go into Avant Garden in the middle of Houston. I meet them after I got off of work, and usually we would go and hang out on the back patio. And
mm,
so when I get there, I go straight to the back patio, and none of my friends are there. I don't know where the fuck they're at, right? But what was there were these people sitting in like a circle, just spitting poems. No music, no nothing, just people saying words and snaps, and I thought it was like the coolest shit ever, dude.
mm,
And like what made it so cool was like the power of words without music attached to it, right? Like I love song and I love like how rhythmic and hypnotizing they can be, but to pull those elements away and now you have to sit with the weight of the words by
mm,
themselves, it hits different. It really
mm.
does hit different. And I really appreciated that. And like, I text my friends, I'm like, where y'all at? And they're like, we're inside. And I'm like, come outside. And they're like, no. And so like I went in because it was her birthday, but like I went back there the next week and the organization's right about now. And I just never stopped going back to that place.
Dang. That's
Yeah.
so cool, man. I didn't realize that, for one, that you started so early and that it was doing rap originally. And then I didn't know that you've been painting in your house, because I remember you having those art nights at your house. So that's like a lifetime sort of tradition that you got going on.
Yeah, man. I guess never thought about it like that, right? But yeah, to bring that back around. Yeah. I miss those art nights, man.
Yeah. Do you feel like that there's any, because you talked about like having the whole jack of all trades approach, painting, rap, poetry, well, those last two kind of overlap, but do you feel like painting has affected your approach to lyrics or poetry at all?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think that there's principles and elements of design for a reason. And like when we build a rap, when we build a song, that's we're designing something, right?
Mm,
And so these things are applicable. Absolutely. For me, I think certain people rely on certain things, right? Like in the language changes, but I think the principles are the same in a lot of ways. But like with my poetry, right, there are two poetic devices that I think I lean on most, and that's alliteration, right? So using the same sound at the beginning of the word, computer, car, cap, right? Like just that same sound, consonant sound. That's one. And then the other one that I think I rely on a lot is it's diction. And it's really interesting as to like how I use that word because like what is diction? That's just word choice, right? But like I think I use it really intentionally. And what I mean by that is like I choose my words based on whatever emotion I want to invoke in my audience, right? So if I want something to hit their spirit, right? Certain words will fall short of that. So I have to make sure the words match the impact that I'm trying to make, right? If I want to say make something feel ethereal and large and galactic, right? I might use a word like humongous, right? And that word has a lot of air in how you say it rather than something like big that makes you feel probably closer to the ground because it's short and it's really close to the word dig, you know?
mm,
And so like that just that simple choice of words does
mm,
something when you say it out loud by how you say it and by just how
mm.
we reference these things throughout our lives in the real world,
Right.
right?
And that
And
becomes super important when, like you were saying, there's no music, no nothing. It's just the power of words. So that stuff really matters.
exactly, right, exactly. And I think that's like one of the things that like I rely on with my poetry is to make
Mm,
sure those word choices are hella intentional,
mm,
and just the sounds are so important to me. How this
right,
comes out of my mouth, how am I able to manipulate this? And that's the other thing to where it's not just writing, right?
right.
But spoken word, right?
The
Like
delivery.
the delivery, the cadence, how is this emoting from me?
Yeah.
That's just as important as what's being written down on the
Yeah.
paper.
Can you talk a little bit more about those last things that you brought up? The cadence, the delivery, like the sound aspect of it? Like what's your approach? Like if you're listening to something else, what do you look for to, or like does any of that come from like certain rappers or other poets that you
Mhm.
like, or just go a
Yeah,
little deeper into that?
yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, whenever I'm building a poem, I'll sort of talk you through my process, right? It's all really out of my mouth and out of my head and my heart. It doesn't hit the page typically until I'm done writing it, right? Or building it and molding it in my head. And the reason
Mm,
I do that is because whenever I do put something on paper or type it out on the computer, it becomes fixed for me in my mind. That's just how I work as a person, right? Once
mm,
it's there, it's harder for me to change it than when it's in my head. I can move blocks around a lot easier in my head than I do once it gets on paper in front of me. For that reason, I build it out in my head that way, right? So I might start with the first line, like Tyler is the dopest motherfucker in the world, might be the first line of the poem, and it's like scaffolding, right? So that's the basis. That's where I'm working from. Now, what is the best thing that can follow Tyler is the dopest motherfucker in the world, right? Like, what is the best thing? There's a lot of different options that can follow that. For example, I can say Tyler is the dopest motherfucker in the whole world. It's like he sucks, right? I can follow with that, or I can do something else. And so I think through these things, I think it through like maybe 3 to 5 different things, right? And I land on the one that I like best. Sometimes I don't have to do five because like, oh, I know this second one's it, right? But once I get that second line, that's the next building block, right? So now we just continue to build on top of this structure that we're making, right? There's sometimes I have to pause because I don't know how to mold or shape the next block, right? So I just put that in the memory bank. We'll
mm.
come back to it later and work on it, right? But when I get into the flow, it feels really good to do this, and it's really fun for me. Like I really do see it like building blocks, right? Like you sit there and play
Mm,
with Legos and build stuff up and build out the things that you want. That's how it works with words in my head.
mm. Super interesting, man. I respect that because I suck at memory, especially being a stoner that I am. My short term memory takes a hit.
It's interesting because like I think that because I build out this way, it helps with the memorization of it,
Mm,
right? I start and I say that first line over and over and over again, right? Because that's the first block. I won't
mm,
build anything else until like that first, I know that first block is good, and it has to be sturdy and stable. So there's sometimes where like I'll get through, the first stanza of my poem, and then I've built on top of the block that's shaky, right? And I was like, I got to go back. I got to take off like 5 blocks and fix this one part that didn't work, And that doesn't mean that second stanza that I built out is discarded, right? But I just got to make sure the glue sticks between those two stones. Um, and sometimes that takes a different approach. And this gets to like where it gets to like the cadence and the question that you asked, right?
mm,
Because like sometimes that requires a different like thought completely, but other times it just requires a changing of the language, right? Not necessarily changing the intent or the sentiment of what I meant, but literally just changing the way I said it, right?
mm.
Instead of contracting that word to it's, maybe I need it is, right? Like the details, it's so small, but it's so important to
Right.
like how this sounds, how this connects. What am I trying to get the audience to feel or sit with?
Mm. That's very true. Yeah. And I can relate to that a little bit from just writing lyrics over, 10, 11 years or so. I wouldn't consider myself a poet. I do write poetry sometimes. I've learned to kind of like replace certain words or like just make one little change or use a different word here and then just judge the sound of it, like hearing it back to myself and like when you have the right thing because it just feels like right. It just fits and it feels natural and especially
Dude,
once you've been doing it for a while, you start to recognize that easier when you got it.
absolutely, absolutely. It feels so good. And that's where I'm in my flow state, and that's where I like to live. Right, is
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of like, yo, that's it. When
Mm-hmm.
I feel that, like, yo, that's what keeps me into this, the
Yeah.
creative process, right?
Yeah.
Because it gets hard at sometimes, it gets hard whenever you feel like for the millionth time this isn't the right word choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or like this poem isn't working out, or these lyrics aren't working out, or this painting isn't panning out, right? But like with the stroke of the brush, right? Now it's working, right? With the
Mm-hmm.
changing or the contracting of this word, now it's starting to work, and that just
Mm-hmm.
feels so freaking good whenever it happens, man.
Yeah. Is there anything that you feel like you do that when you aren't coming up with a thing and something that helps you kind of like change it up or like is there some kind of like part of your process that you feel like helps when you're stuck? I know sometimes it's just like a mystery, but there might be
It
like a little trick you do or something.
it is a mystery. I think about this a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking about what fosters my creativity best,
Mm,
right? And when it comes to poetry, I don't think I still have a clear cut answer, but there are practices not to unblock me, but there are practices I use to make sure that I'm in a space where I won't be blocked, right?
gotcha.
Um, I know I can't write around other people. I can't create around other people. Going to Starbucks and trying to write a fucking poem, that's impossible for me to do,
Mm.
right? I create best when I'm by myself. And when I say by myself, like literally the house has to be empty, right? Like if someone's in the room next to me, I don't feel like I'm by myself, right? And
Dude,
so
yeah.
if I want to get into a flow state, I'll make sure the environment is apt for me to do so, right? And even with all of that work it takes to do that, there are times where I still feel blocked. There's times where I still feel like this isn't panning out or I can't produce, and that's really frustrating. The other thing that like I think that helps is incentive, you know.
Mm,
Um, like I was telling you about this poem earlier in this conversation, and I got paid to do this as a paid gig, and I had a deadline, and you know that's a lot of incentive to get the thing done. And
yeah.
so like I got it done, I got it done because of that. I would have procrastinated on it a lot longer if I didn't have a deadline. And so those incentives are really good to set up for yourself. For me, it has to be stakes. I can't set up arbitrary incentives for myself. That just doesn't work for me.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, that's a good way to do it because, yeah, you're never going to know completely what works for your process. You might like recognize that, hey, there's this one trigger, like, if I'm home alone or, I remember hearing one time this one musician that I listened to, he said that he wrote his best songs whenever it was like he was had a plan to do something, but let's say this person didn't show up or like something changed. So then all of a sudden now you're alone instead of doing this thing that was like his most creative zone. So little things like that. And there's artists that I like that seems like over time they recognize in themselves what those types of creative catalysts are.
Yes.
So I definitely relate to the whole someone being in the room next to you doesn't feel like being alone, especially if the walls are thin.
It's the worst, man. And to couple that with like the way I create, it's just verbally,
Mm-hmm.
if you put a camera in here while I'm trying to make a poem, it just looks like I'm a crazy person talking to myself, like so it does feel super weird when I'm just like expressing these thoughts that might not work out loud,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a person next to me like listening to my real time thoughts as I say
Right.
them out loud. This shit sounds crazy, right? Like not every
Right.
thought that I have, not every structure of the word pans out. Most of them don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fixing. There's a lot of molding and sculpting through that process. So it's
Mhm.
important, and I think more so than what it means to be alone, it's about what it means to be comfortable or feel like
Right.
you're held and supported in the space. Because like I think there are some people that I can like vibe out with and create with where they can be in the room and I don't feel a type of way about it. You
Hmm.
know, they don't hinder my ability to do that.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, you have to just be really careful and selective, and like if you're gonna have people around you, you got to pick them like very, very carefully.
Yes. Yes.
So I know you're like a very artistic, creative person, and you need to be alone when you write. But I also know that you're a super friendly like person, and you like to talk to people too. So where do you like kind of see yourself on the introvert extrovert scale, or are you like in the middle?
Man, I like to think I'm an extrovert. I think if I lean one way, it's extroverted for sure.
Mm,
Part of me believe like I'm just like an ambivert, you know, like
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
can do both. I can return into myself, and that's super needed and necessary a lot of the time. But I
mm-hmm.
do get a lot of joy from being around people. I do get a lot of energy from it. I'm able to like disperse my energy with people easily. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
feel overwhelmed just because people are around. I think that I was having this conversation the other day with a friend about this, and I think of like where I do feel like I'm inverted to myself is whenever I'm mission oriented, right?
Mm,
So if I'm trying to create, leave me the fuck alone. Go away. You know, if I'm
yeah.
trying to do something, go away. If I'm trying to connect with people, if that's the mission, then bring me people. You know what I
Mm,
mean? I want to be around people and experience that thing. You know, that's sort of where I'm at with it.
okay. Interesting. I can see that. That answer that makes sense. That lines up with how I perceive it too. So yeah, man, I wanted to talk a little bit about a few of your pieces. I was rewatching them recently, and well, first of all, I love all of them, man. And you're
Thank you.
constantly like just giving out goosebumps. That one poem you talk about your shadow and like dealing with the dark side of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that is like such an underrated part actually of like psychedelic stuff, you
Mm.
know, because like that does come up sometimes and it's like all connected, you know, it's part of the light and all the good stuff too. But like, can you talk a little bit about like the feeling and like just your perception of like your own shadow side?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like that poem's called The Dark is Old, and you know, part of me wants to say that it's like one of three of my favorite poems that I've written, just because it explores a lot of what you're saying. It's just some untalked about stuff, right? Not even just of the psychedelic experience, but I think like people are afraid to dive into their demons too, you
Yeah.
know. And I think that's like what that poem like is just sort of all about, and like understanding the scary part about embracing that and about embracing who that is, but like also getting to the fact of like that is who you are, yo.
Mm,
That is absolutely who you are. There's a part of us, you know. This is what the human experience is. All the good that you have to offer in the world is great, but you can't ignore that you have a lot of shitty stuff too, you know.
mm-hmm.
For me, and I don't even know if I'm answering your question at all, but for me, like when I'm going into this poem and I'm thinking about like what are my shitty parts, what are the things that I need to work on, my defensiveness, my unwillingness to accept when people don't accept my love, you know, which is ironic as fuck, right? Like that's not okay. It's like really bad
Mm,
behaviors, you know, like, and so like it's always me constantly working on it, but also constantly trying to recognize like that is who you are, you
mm-hmm.
know. And if you want to get better, you have to accept it first.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, you totally did answer my question. And like, what's a better way to process that and deal with all of that than through your art?
Yeah, yeah. I think I think doing it through your art is like super great. I also recommend therapy, you know, like like
Yes.
I think that's like really good for people because like one thing like especially within the poetry community, a lot of
Mhm.
poets and writers feel like, oh, I can just process this stuff through my writing and that's
Mm.
it, and I don't think so. I think there's a lot of stuff that like professionals are trained to help us through,
Mhm.
and like reliving it is one part of it. Being able to write through it is another part of it, or think through it is another part of it, or verbalize it, right? That's all part of it. But like, what does it mean to reconcile with these demons,
Mm.
right? Because like, I think through the process of that poem, I understood a lot more about myself, but the work hadn't been done by the completion of that poem, you know?
Yeah, right. Like it's just a step, but not
Yeah,
the whole process.
absolutely.
Wow, man. So are you taking like therapy regularly, or do you just do it? Have you done it in the past, or are you doing
No,
it
man,
now?
like I've never been to therapy, and that's because I'm really scared. And I know I need to be, or I should
Yeah.
be in therapy,
Yeah.
like I'm not the worst person in the world. But I think everybody should go to
I
therapy or give
agree.
it a shot. But I think it's easy to recommend stuff and not do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like you think about like finances, right? What does it mean to do that? Am I really good enough not to do it, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I think I live through the world without like freaking out most days. Uh,
Mm.
but eventually I'll muster the courage to do that.
Yeah. Well, I feel you on that, man. I actually haven't been either, but I just signed up to do it like a couple days ago.
Yes, man. That's so
So
cool, dude.
yeah, I did it through the BetterHelp, like the little app thing. So you can do like a
Yes,
video call, and that just seems like more relaxed, like on your own time, and you can kind of get someone that's like picked for you. And then if you like just put that you've been affected by the virus, and I think they ask for your income or something, but they'll give you like a discounted price on it. So that's
dope.
still like not something that I think I want to do every single month ever, but I at least, I'm going to do the first month and see how it goes from there.
Nice. That's so cool, dude. Like, yeah, like I think that it's dope that you're doing that. I think it's dope that you're honest about that. I think it's dope that men can have this conversation with each other right now. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
such a problem and toxic that like for so long we were like have to like battle with these demons without even talking about them.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah, that poem is to go back to the poem real quick, right? It's so layered and dense because like it is a poem about battling with the dark side, but it's also a poem talking about this fragile masculinity,
Mm.
talking about how like, yo, like I rage out ironically because
Hmm.
like people aren't nice to me when I'm nice to them. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. That's
Mm.
crazy that that's what it is, but like that's the honest part of it and that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
And that's the shitty part of it, and like we got to be better.
Right. And that's just what happens when you don't know how to handle it at all. You handle it poorly. So like
Yeah,
that's why it's like the first response to like lash out and be toxic like that is because we don't know how to do it right,
yeah,
like. So I think that's super important too, and I've always appreciated being able to talk to you about stuff like that because yeah, it's really underserved. And I was reading that in your poetry book too recently. I think you had a little section about that too in there.
yeah. There's a part in there. I think there's I don't remember the name of that poem. That's there, but it's pretty short. I think
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it just hints on that really quickly about like how like we bottle this stuff up and
Yeah.
we just don't deal with it right.
Yeah. So like I mean, obviously that has like such an ancient like history and stuff because men have been oppressing others and oppressing their own feelings for like all of recorded history basically. So it's a lot of baggage that we got to like unpack and stuff, but I think even if we can't fix it all in our lifetime, maybe it'll be like a generational enterprise, like where we try to just make it a little bit better in the next generation. Maybe it'll be normal for like men to talk about that stuff, or to at least not be such an asshole for a start.
Dude, absolutely. I already see it. Like the generation Z gives me so much hope. Um, and not to say they're perfect. I mean,
Mhm,
see a lot of little shits in the world too.
mhm,
But like there's a lot more. I think there's a lot of compassion in that generation. I think there's a lot of willingness to learn
mhm,
and not feel judged. My ability to mentor some young people
mhm,
is just really cool. Some young men, like they're really receptive to me, and I
mhm.
think that's dope. I think that's dope.
That's awesome, man. Because yeah, you've been teaching in a little bit, right? Is that kind of what you
Yes.
mean, or more in the church?
Yeah, teaching. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I've been teaching guitar, so I totally get that. And I see these little kids that these are like young future men that you kind of have the potential to mold them in either a
Yes.
better direction or
Mhm.
they'll be a little asshole or murderer or something, like we don't want that.
Yeah, we don't.
Like this kid that I have in one of my classes, he's like his response to like if he feels threatened at all, he'll like basically take the idea of self-defense and like take it way too far, like he wants to like murder you for like pushing him or calling him dumb or something really like that shouldn't matter. And I'm just trying my best to be like, hey, that's not cool, that's actually not what you want, and just
Yeah,
trying to set an example of like, and you don't even have to like actively teach them to just like be that and show them like, hey, this is how you can be. You don't have to be like Mr. Cool, macho, like all of that noise that we've been brought up with. So
yeah, yeah.
what what else do you think that we can learn from like non-men listening and opening ourselves to their experiences? Like what do you think we need to listen to the most?
I think you just hit it on the head. I think like just our ability to be open, right? That's the main thing that we can learn. I think women are just so open to stuff, right? They're open in their capacity to learn. They're open in their capacity to try out new things. Their capacity to try out what it means to identify with their sexuality. And I think that's like a gift rather than being galvanized in whatever manliness we think exists in the world. Why not allow ourselves to be open to whatever experiences we might be able to enjoy, right?
Mm,
um and I think off of that there's just so much to learn and to enjoy, and
mm,
it's hard. Outside of that, it's hard for me to pinpoint one thing because
right.
everyone's different and what everyone should get is different, right?
Totally.
But if we start from the place of like I'm willing to get something, then like you're on the right track. I feel like, you
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think that's a good start, at least. We
Yeah,
might not have the answers to the universe and just our little ideas, but yeah, I think that's a good starting point, at least, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and to be more concrete, if I can think of one thing, it's like the ability to be less violent,
Mm,
you know?
totally. Totally. Because violence is seen as strength. And that's part of the problem too, right? Is that we have all these twisted ideas of what it means to be strong, which like, you know, masculine what's it called? Concepts can be a good, like positive thing, but we're like just getting it twisted.
Yes, yes, we are. We are conflating violence with aggression, right?
Mm,
Like I have this poem about like aggressive hugs, right? Like I
mm,
see the homie and we're so hyped and we are strong with each other and we love each other hard. And I love that. Like that aggression doesn't bother me, but it's the violence that bothers me behind people's aggression, right?
mm,
And I don't think there's necessarily a need for that, you know. And
mm,
women are typically, I don't want to like put anyone in a box, but like typically from what I know and what I've experienced and what I see, women are softer than men. And more just like water, they're able to like
mm,
um enter situations with a lot cooler of a head than men and handle situations that are tense with a lot cooler of a head than men. And that doesn't mean that they aren't angry. That doesn't mean they don't feel deeply on all these different things, but like the ability not to resort to violence is like really impressive.
Yeah, I agree, man. We'd probably be in a lot less wars if there were like at least a balance of men and women leaders, you know. It doesn't have to go 100% the other way, but I think that we could balance each other if in an ideal world, you know, like
Absolutely.
hey, calm down a little bit, you know. You don't have to nuke North Korea. Let's chill out.
I was thinking about this idea. This might be a little bit far, but I think you could appreciate this. Like thinking about the future, right? Like
Mm,
hundreds of years into the future. I think that will probably be to a point. Have you heard of CRISPR? Let's start there. Have you
yeah.
heard of? Okay,
Gene
so
editing.
picking your DNA and stuff like that. I think that would
Yeah.
be bold enough to where people can pick whatever child they want to have. And like I think in the future, people aren't necessarily gonna want to have like your cis male or your cis woman, right? It'll probably be some weird like genetic makeup of all kinds of different stuff, right?
Mm,
And I think that's going to be cool. And I also think what's going to come with that is this merging or blurring of like what does it mean to be feminine and what does it mean to have feminine
mm,
traits or masculine traits, right? I can
mm,
very much see a like person who has like pectorials, a vagina, presents like very masculine, but also being the most compassionate, softest person in the world
mm,
and want to be loved that way, right? Like I can completely see that happening. And like so it'll reshape our like mind about what does it mean to be a male leader or a female leader, right?
mm,
But like what is and it I think the good thing that comes out of that is we'll be able to focus more not on like male leader or female leader, but just leader. And
mm.
what do these qualities hold? And what do we want for society?
Right. Yeah, I think that's powerful. And who knows what the future is going to be like? That probably will happen. And it's going to trigger a whole bunch of people. But
Yeah, that thought probably triggers a whole bunch of people.
yeah, yeah. I bet if we just walked outside and we were talking about this right now, we'd feel a little awkward. But I think that's what it comes down to. And like conversations I've had with you have helped me kind of like think about stuff like that, that like once things change in that way, there's going to be a new normal, you know, like, and what we consider normal will be of the past. And like, you know, I also think that maybe traditional genders and stuff like that had their place in way back in the day. But even then there's like societies with third genders and like indigenous cultures that like recognize that. But I think that now that we're not in survival mode, like we're not outside trying to like hunt and gather and any of that stuff anymore, so it kind of just like frees us up to be this like blank slated consciousness. But I think, you know, people are still going to go, you know, you're still going to have cis people and like everything in between. Because, you know, like for me, for example, I completely identify with my body, you know, like I'm, but, and I couldn't understand like what it really feels like to have that body dysmorphia or dysphoria or whatever, to like not feel okay in your own skin. And like I think everyone definitely has the right to be able to feel like themselves. And
Yes.
and we need more of that. Like, you know, it's probably just depressing as fuck for all those people right now who are having to live like going against the grain right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it leads to a question of like, what does it mean for the people who feel threatened by this to have stakes in this? You know, because like should they? That's a question that's up for debate. But do they? They absolutely have power in this conversation because they are the normative. You know,
Mm,
and I just wonder about that, right? Like when you have people who are determining the outcomes for more fringe people, people who aren't the norm, like that starts to be a dangerous precedent. And like, what
mm-hmm,
arguments are you making to support whatever it is that you think you're holding on to? You know,
mm-hmm.
and one of the things that I always hear is like, what's too far? You know, and I'm just like, why is that consequential to you? Like, why does it matter to you?
Right. It's not
You know,
your life at all.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the answer to that why always rooted in like, oh, I don't want my kids. And that's so
Mm,
interesting of an answer to me now because I think that like that's very selfish, right? Like for you to be thinking about what you want for your kids, for you to be thinking about what you want for a sentient being that would be a free moral agent at some point in their life, and your wills will have no bearing on their life at some point. Like that's
mhm,
selfish, right? And we shouldn't live from a place of like towering over others, right? To
mhm.
be a caregiver shouldn't be about what I want to impose on a person, but it should be about how I want this person to be cultivated and grow from what I can provide.
Right, right. And no matter how hard you try to force somebody to fit in whatever mold, they're not gonna. And like if you do try to force them into that, they're not gonna be happy, even suicidal. So,
Yes.
but let me turn this around just for a second,
Yeah, yeah.
because I remember you were saying like, what if in the future parents get to choose like through CRISPR and stuff like that? So is that
uh,
imposing their will if they want their kid to be non-binary or whatever it is? Like,
yeah.
should but maybe I'm thinking if it's like reversible or something like that in the future, then maybe it doesn't matter like what you start off as and you can ultimately decide for yourself.
That's
So
such a good point. That's such a good point. I think one like that's something that I can see like people ultimately deciding what they want for themselves. I think my futurist thought is limited, one because like I don't know the future, but
true.
the framing of that is not limited to like the intrinsic values that we teach people, right? Like I don't know why I'm a man, you know what I mean? I don't know why I was born a male, like that's just what happened, and luckily I identify with who I am wholeheartedly, you know. um I don't know the pullers of how that happened, but like if
Mhm.
my parents did get to choose, like I want Zach to be a man, I'm cool with it. If that wasn't the case, I think, and I felt like a man, and I had to go through the whole transition thing. I think what makes that harder is the stigma of society, right?
Mhm.
My futurist thought is thinking from a lens of it being so eclectic and so normative that like there would be no stigma to be a person with three boobs and a penis. You know what I mean? Like that would be a fine way to exist in the world. And if
Yeah.
you don't identify with it, then I guess yeah, sure, you can go and like change it,
Yeah.
and try and fix that for yourself. But like what I was definitely like more leaning toward with like how do I want people to like how parents want their children to exist in the world was
Mhm.
on the intrinsic values that we teach them, and I
Mhm.
think that's a good thing, like when you teach intrinsic values, when you teach like yeah, be a good person because that's good for society or
Right.
whatever, you know what I mean.
Right.
But you have to allow space for that foundation to be there, like once I've made the foundation, once the framework's set, I don't really care what color you paint the walls. I don't really care if you choose brick or wood. You build the rest of your house.
Mm.
And I think a lot
Mhm.
of parents aren't giving space for young people to build their house.
Yeah, totally. And we see that like when we teach, right? You see
Yes.
these kids that are getting swamped and their parents just want to drop them off to any like little extracurricular that they can just to like as like a babysitting service, and they don't get to do what they really want or have any unstructured playtime, which is like how kids discovered
Mhm.
themselves,
Yes.
and so I
Yes.
see that, and I'm sure you see that whenever you're teaching.
Yeah, man, for sure. Like I think that kids don't have enough like creative time to just like problem solve and figure stuff out.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Well, that's super interesting subject. I'll hit you back up in 50 years and we'll see how it turned out.
We'll see. We'll see.
So, yeah, man. Well, cool. I just want to get into a couple more of your pieces.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, the other one that I wanted to talk about was your club story, where the poem was named after the Kendrick song, the
Yes.
All Right poem.
Mhm.
Can you
Yes.
like I think I'll put it into this video if that's possible, but
Yeah,
can
yeah,
you
yeah. We'll get you the links.
re-summarize the like that experience?
Yeah. So that poem, that experience, that was real, right? So like I was at a rave, and those things are great. They're a lot of fun. I enjoy doing that. The One of the problems with it though is those audiences skewed very, very white. Um and so that's never really a problem for me. Inherently, I'm okay with being around white people growing up half my life and friends with. Um but I'm there jamming. Where the problem starts is with like what is EDM, and what um are DJs pulling from, what catalogs are DJs
Mm,
pulling from, right?
mm,
And a lot of it's hip hop, right? A lot of it's rap music, and that's historically black as fuck, right? And so you get a song like Kendrick, All Right, which is like hella black.
mm,
This is what we're talking about, is like violence toward black people through police in some of the lyrics, right? And like
mm.
whenever you have like that environment, all these white people, one of very, very few black people in the space, and you hear this word nigga said in a way that's arbitrary to them, and
Yeah. And it's like a sea full of people at the same time. So it's probably like even more overwhelming.
it's wild. And for me, like, it's not a thing to where I don't feel safe or I feel threatened, right? But it's more of like a space of where like you don't use this in this context
Mm,
any other time, but when you feel safe to do so.
mm,
And so, why is it that you feel safe to do so right now? Right? That's like sort of the things that I try to get at with that poem. Why is it that right now you feel real comfortable with this? And how do you think that this might make me feel? Even though we're at this rave, even though we're at this space where we come to be mindless in a lot of ways, right? And not have to think about too much, right? Where is compassion and empathy even in these spaces,
mm,
right? And through the poem, you hear like at some point it's like, fuck it, they're not gonna have it. I just gotta find my own joy and inner peace, and have it live inside of me. And I don't think that's a happy conclusion. Thinking about it, it's one that you have to deal with and find resolve in, but like that's not ideal.
right. Right. Well, that was a powerful poem, man. Super powerful poem. I love that song too. Um, and that album in general is like so legendary.
It is, man. It is. I think that's my favorite Kendrick album, To Pimp a Butterfly, man.
Same, same. Just the storytelling and all the little skits and
Yeah.
the funk element, the jazz element, just the way that it's like a mishmash of like a lot of like black history and music all like just like funneled into this like super just powerful delivery. And Kendrick's like the goat and everything. So do you
Yeah.
consider him the goat though?
Um, it's hard for me to consider any one rapper the GOAT.
Yeah.
If I did, I think it might be it has to either be Jay-Z or Lil Wayne as the
Really?
GOAT.
I remember you telling me Lil Wayne. That's the New Orleans bias, though, huh?
This
Coming
is
up.
New Orleans bias. This is New Orleans bias. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But like, I mean, the sheer number of records, you know what I mean? The sheer number of
Mm,
songs and lyrics that that person put out is just unmatched. It's his
mhm,
catalog's unmatched by anyone. And like you think about what is influence. And as much as I love Kendrick, I think Kendrick is on some woke shit, and that's not the culture of pop culture. And when you see the pop culture rappers who influence the most, Lil Wayne. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like you can't tell me Takashi 6ix9ine, Trippy Red, Lil Uzi Vert. You can't tell me XXX Tentacion. They weren't birthed out of an era of nothing but Lil Wayne songs. You know what I mean? They
mhm,
totally get their essentialness from that character.
mhm. Yeah, I never really thought about that, but that makes sense. Like as far as influence and all that stuff. Yeah, I can see Kendrick not being like that influential, like because of like the level that he's on, honestly. So
Yeah.
what is it about Jay-Z that you feel like makes him one of the best?
Man, Jay-Z's timeless, dude. I think that like that's like homage. That's just respect, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's the last of the 90s rappers that has galvanized himself.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's still doing it, you know. I think him and Busta Rhymes, but even Busta Rhymes isn't Jay-Z. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm gonna need like a albums list from you to like
Word.
get all
Word.
acclimated because like Kendrick was my introduction to hip hop,
Oh wow.
and then from there I went because I started off pretty like I had a pretty high bar set,
Yeah.
and then I got like into Outkast and then the
Okay.
Fugees and some more modern stuff, but I'm like still not very like well exposed. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
man, I'm
need
gonna
a
send you a
list.
bunch of Jay-Z songs to listen
Okay.
to. Like,
All right.
and I think with Jay-Z, he's a good balance of someone who does both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's deep, like Kendrick in a lot of songs, but also he gets real commercial with it
Mm-hmm.
too, and it's just pop songs too, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I like that. I'm very much a person who likes to dip in and out of, you know, hearty laughs and real deep conversation, you know.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. I know that's true, man. Yeah, I don't think you're lying. Um well, cool, man. Yeah, send me some stuff.
Well,
The other piece that I wanted to talk to you about was the one that seemed to go semi-viral, was the one that you did that was like a duet, the I'm So Black poem. can
yes.
you can you remind me who the name of the other poet was, and can you talk about like how that came?
Yeah, so the other poet is named RJ Wright, and that poem kind of was birthed out of I was on a team, right? I was on a team, a poetry team, and we compete nationally. And so you write group poems, you write group pieces with your teammates, and you do those poems. And so we're just thinking on ideas of like what could we do a poem about, and then like actually Safi, Amir Safi, who is like not a black person, was like, y'all should do a poem about being black. And it legit kind of started as a joke, but it just spawned into something that we never could have guessed would go viral. But people love it, man. People love it. Um, I think the process of writing that poem was kind of hard to talk about because like
Mm,
I was super new and I didn't really have a lot of experience as to like what where and when to assert myself when working with someone on
mm,
building a poem. You could probably
mm.
imagine how complicated that process is,
Yeah.
right? How do you interweave um our writing together, and then how do we choose who says what, right, and how we script this thing out. It's a lot of intricacies than just what it presents. I don't feel connected to that poem anymore, I really don't, but I
Mm,
think it's really important for a lot of people, which is why like I love it so much.
mm, Interesting. So you feel like you just don't relate to the perspective that you had like back then, or
No, no, not at all. Like I mean, I'm still hella black in a lot of ways. I just think that that poem is not like I really don't think it's my best work, right? I
I
just don't think
gotcha.
it's my best work. But I understand the work that it does, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to like just talk about it just because like I don't really vibe with it.
Yeah.
But I will speak to the experience of like, yeah, that's a lot of why a lot of people fuck with me is because they saw that poem first.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's a lot. That's a lot. That poem gives a lot of people hope, that a lot of people encouragement, make a lot of people feel seen and heard, and
Hmm.
like that's worth recognizing. That's worth continuing to have it circulate. Um, and and I think that people who find me through that poem don't know what I'm about, right? Because
Hmm.
like I'm not necessarily about only my identity as being a black person, right?
Yeah.
But like that's just a part of it. I'm about like empathy, love, compassion, all these bigger ideas, right?
Right.
That's the bulk of my work, right? And so it's always fun to have those people come into my world and really see who I am, see what Xach Blunt is actually about. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
some of them like only like that poem, and then others of them really fuck with Xach Blunt, and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope more people get exposed to your stuff, man, because I think this is what you should totally be doing. And please keep going with it, even if you're taking a little pause right now.
Yeah,
Um,
man, definitely gonna keep going with it. Definitely gonna try to produce more poetry. It's National Poetry Month, April, month of April. So I'm pushing myself to write a little bit more this month.
nice. Maybe even just like a one liner just to like get something.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Uh,
have those thoughts in there.
yeah, man. Well, this has been really cool. I just wanted to like uh ask you one more thing.
Yeah.
And if you have any like of your own thoughts of just something that you want to share, please feel free to add it. But the thing I was going to ask you is like, what would you tell young 7-year old Xach or any other like aspiring creative person, whether that's poetry, painting, whatever? Like, what would you tell a young you or a young artist?
You're your hardest critic. Everyone else's opinions are irrelevant, and just produce. Everything will come with time after that, you know. You can build a skill. You can build a skill. You can't, but like, you can't build that skill if you're not working on it. If you're not putting out work, if you're not producing the stuff. So you got to make stuff. You got to make stuff. That's what I tell. I'm still trying to learn that lesson.
Yeah. Yes, totally, totally.
Just keep doing it, you know. I
Yeah.
try to just encourage my students, the young people. I really do just try to like pump them with energy, like gas them the fuck up. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy how cool and how cool the stuff that people make when they feel confident in
Mm-hmm.
their ability to do it, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's half the battle is for people to feel confident and capable.
Yeah, because all you have to do is expose them to that feeling for the first time. What we were talking about, like when you're in the zone and you feel that sense of everything fitting together and you're like in the flow state and that like euphoria that comes with that. I feel like once you get someone to experience that, then the snowball starts to take shape.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So cool, man. Well, thanks for talking to me, bro. It was so good to see you. We'll have to hang out in real life pretty soon.
Yeah, man, whenever you're ready to do that, let's kick it, dude.
Well, yeah, man. Hope you have a really good day, man. And I really appreciate you talking to me. You're always really inspiring, and I look up to you and your work a lot. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
appreciate
I'll
it.
be seeing you soon, man.
Yeah, let's make that trip happen, man.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, brother.
All
I'll
right.
talk to you soon.
All right. Peace.
Bye.